Hello everybody, and welcome back to Steven's Fight Show. Alright, so this Saturday we got Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Kevin Holland, two elite level strikers in the UFC today. You already know I'm always excited for any high level striking match in the UFC. And on one side we have Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and it's funny how his nickname is Wonderboy because he literally looks like a boy. Bro, mans is pushing 40 and it looks like he just graduated high school. Like, look how young he is, bro. Have you guys seen pictures of him fighting when he was a kid? Bro literally looks like a 10-year-old out there fighting with like teenagers. And on the other side we have Kevin Holland, and I'm pretty sure we all know what Kevin Holland is known for. I mean, the dude pretty much says anything that is on his mind during a fight. Like, you can tell he's one of those kids back in school that when the teacher is teaching a lesson, he's the kid that always has to say something. He's the kid that pretty much never shuts up. But anyways, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson will return to the cage after pretty much 1 year since his last defeat to Belal Muhammed. And this time, he finally gets his hands on a striker because the last few fights for Wonderboy have been very rough. I mean, he lost his last two fights and he fought Gilbert at UFC 264 where he lost that fight via decision, and about 5 months later he was scheduled to fight Belal Muhammed and he lost that fight pretty convincingly. And the theme for both of those losses is almost the same. He got out grappled in both of those fights, and his overall performance, I'm not going to lie, was disappointing in those fights. And due to the matchups and the styles of both Gilbert and Belal Muhammed, it looks like Wonderboy has been a bit hesitant in those fights. It looks like most of the time he's being more defensive than aggressive. And if you combine the threat of the takedown, Wonderboy pretty much completely froze out there. However, in this fight against Kevin Holland, hopefully, and I say hopefully, Wonderboy doesn't have to deal with any of that, and instead we can get a nice stand-up fight. Although Kevin Holland is a jiu-jitsu black belt, he's not really a great wrestler. And also, I mean, we already just covered this, but the guy is one of the most funniest and entertaining guys in the UFC. Like, any feeling he has during the fight, he'll say it. He doesn't care what happens. However, even though Kevin Holland is a good striker, he's dealing with not only the NMF of the UFC, but one of the greatest strikers of all time. Wonderboy is one of my favorite fighters of all time, and his striking is a thing of beauty. He came into the UFC with a unique style of striking from that karate background, and it pretty much rose him to the top of the welterweight division. There were so many tough fighters that Wonderboy fought that was never able to figure him out on the feet. Hence, they would all get picked apart, and because of that, he got a shot at the title twice against the former champion Tyron Woodley. And in both of those fights, he unfortunately came up short. And after those fights, even though he started to age, he was still winning fights against good competition like Jorge Masvidal, Vicente Luque, and Jeff Neal. And about 2 years ago, Wonderboy had a legit chance to fight for the welterweight title again. However, because of his recent losses, his path of claiming gold is slowly looking unlikely as he starts to get older. It's sad to see this because the dude is so likable. I don't think there's any UFC fan that hates Wonderboy. I mean, how can you? And to add to that, mans can fight. Who wouldn't want to see somebody like Wonderboy win the UFC title? However, even though Wonderboy is no longer in title contention, getting a win here against Kevin Holland, who's also not in title contention, can help him slowly get the ball rolling again. If he gets a win here, he's right back in the win column, and although I don't think he can become champ again, I still think there are some great fights out there for Wonderboy. And he is on a bit of a decline right now, and he might not be the same fighter as he was in his prime, but he's not exactly out of the game right now. He did beat Jeff Neal in a 5-round fight in a convincing fashion, and Jeff Neal is a strong contender in the welterweight division. He beat Vicente Luque before Luque suffered his 2 losses, and usually when we look at a fighter, when we say that they need to retire, we're saying that for a reason, and that reason is that they are getting constantly finished, or they're just simply not the same at all. And Wonderboy, he hasn't been getting finished, which is a good sign because when you're getting finished left, right, and center, that's a sign that you might need to hang it up. And realistically, if we're being honest, Wonderboy doesn't need to fight at this stage of his career and his life. Mans is reaching father time and he's not really a superstar, so if he's not fighting for the title, then why should he even fight at all? That's the only reason that I can think of about him fighting. And again, I'm not saying he can become the champion, but he can still make a last minute push. I believe it's possible. Especially when you see a guy like Glover Teixeira, who was the former light heavyweight champion and still being at the top of the light heavyweight division, and it all starts with the win. If he can get a win against Kevin Holland, then he can get right back on track, and potentially he can look at some decent matchups for him in the welterweight division. They're certainly not easy, but like I said again, Wonderboy has a little bit left in him to try to make a last minute push to try to become the champion again. Alright, so now let's talk about the fight itself. In this matchup, we got 2 different types of strikers. If I had to describe Wonderboy, I would say he's like a ghost. He constantly moves, he's never in one position for too long. and he kind of reminds me like the current unified heavyweight champion of the world right now, Alexander Usyk. If you watch how Usyk fights and you compare it to Wonderboy, they do have similarities in the way they move, and because of his karate background where he has experience in point fighting, he understands distance very well. And it should be no surprise because that's the core of karate. His ability to comfortably move on the back foot from side to side and the speed at which he closes the distance are incredible. He can blitz in with a quick combination and exit out before you can touch him. He's really great at blending his kicks behind his punches. He has great setups behind his strikes where he'll throw feints or show before he attacks, and this allows him to create angles, which he does beautifully, and that front leg side kick is very dangerous as well. The timing of it where he can judge the distance to catch you coming in with it will be an issue for anybody. He can also change levels with it where he'll land it to the head as well, which is something that you don't see very often. Defensively, because of his footwork and his movement, it's very hard to get a hold of him. Similarly to Israel Adesanya, Wonderboy likes to move his head to avoid punches as well. And on the other side, we have Kevin Holland, who's the loudmouth for a reason. But hey, that's why we mess with him, right? He's a good striker, and ironically, he has a few qualities similar to Wonderboy. They're obviously two completely different fighters, but they do share some things in common. He has good movement, he's defensively sound, he's also unpredictable, he varies his attacks, and he can counter-strike very well as well. And the funny thing is, he also has a good side kick. He's caught a few people with the side kick before as well. However, when I watch Kevin Holland, something that I notice about him continuously in every one of his fights that make him really dangerous is his ability to be precise with his strikes. For an example, against Joaquin Buckley, where Buckley was extremely erratic in that fight, and he was throwing powerful strikes at Kevin Holland coming forward, but Holland, he wasn't phased. He stayed calm and he landed a right hand that didn't even look powerful, but it was accurate. It landed right on the chin, and that's all he needed to drop Buckley. Against Jacare, I think he landed a right hand to the forehead or somewhere around that area, and that shot was able to put Jacare to sleep. And not only that, when you watch him throw any other strike like a front kick to the body, a head kick, a jab, or a leg kick, you'll notice that he lands those strikes where it should be landing, and that's where he could have an edge against Wonderboy. His ability to stick and move could also be a factor that can definitely help him win this fight, considering his skill set where he can catch Wonderboy off guard. So with that being said, now that we have discussed every single thing that both fighters do well, in my official prediction, I think Wonderboy will win a close 5-round decision against Kevin Holland. This fight is going to be a chess match in my opinion. Both guys are very technical and they possess great skill sets on the feet. I think Holland is going to have trouble dealing with the distance of Wonderboy. I think there are very few fighters in the UFC that can match Wonderboy's ability to control range and close it the way he does. And because Holland has never seen anything like it, I think it will throw him off during the fight. I think he's also going to have a bit of a hard time seeing everything that Wonderboy is throwing. Because Wonderboy sets everything up so well, I think Holland will get caught unexpectedly. Holland is a very good defensive fighter and he usually sees a lot of strikes coming his way. But against Wonderboy, I don't think he'll see them. And the only worry or concern for Wonderboy is the fact that he can get complacent and hesitant at times. And that's obviously due to the matchup of his opponents, but if it does get to that point, that's where Holland needs to capitalize. We've seen many fights in the past where we've seen Wonderboy be too patient, and against Kevin Holland, that can't happen. Holland needs to chop down the legs in my opinion. He needs to chop down the legs of Wonderboy, since that has been known to be something that Wonderboy is susceptible to, and it's because of that wide karate stance. When I watch Wonderboy fight, whenever he's out there, he looks comfortable. And when he's comfortable, he's very dangerous. The way he's moving out there should tell you a lot. And one of the ways to take Wonderboy out of that rhythm is leg kicks. Every single style has a weakness to exploit, and for Wonderboy, leg kicks fall into that category. And Holland also needs to make sure to follow up after leg kicks as well. Single strikes do not work against Wonderboy because of the threat of attacks that are coming back at you. A couple of feints would serve Holland well in this fight as well. And the thing is, I know Holland wants to strike in this fight, but if he truly wants to win this fight, he should try shooting a couple of takedowns in this fight. And it's not for the purpose of taking him down. And I know that doesn't make sense, but hear me out. If he does get him to the ground, that's a bonus. But the reason to do this is to keep Wonderboy guessing, because you have to make him work. When he's out there bouncing on his toes, moving in and out, he's in his element, and to him, he doesn't have to be alert. When you chop down the legs, you throw combinations, you shoot for takedowns, you throw different feints, cut off the cage, and not be overly aggressive, this forces Wonderboy to worry about so many different things that he doesn't have time to think about what he wants to do. Try to time where he's going to be, not where he's at, which is a lot easier said than done, but it's what's required for Kevin Holland to win. I think that has to be the mindset for Holland in this fight, because you know that Wonderboy is willing to give up ground in this fight if he has to, but don't make it easy for him on the back foot. This is a 5-round fight, and both guys aren't really 5-round fighters in my opinion, but Wonderboy has had a lot more experience fighting 5-round fights than Kevin Holland, so I'm going to say this fight being 5 rounds would benefit Wonderboy in many ways. This is going to be a wonderful fight for the fans to watch. A great fight to start the last month of the year where we only have 3 fights to watch, including this one. And I wouldn't mind seeing Kevin Holland win because I think the dude is just hilarious. But I really want Wonderboy to get this dub. He's such a classy and outstanding guy, and the dude just never stops smiling. The energy that you see from him is so kind and heartwarming that you just want to see him win. And regardless, he'll be known as one of the best strikers to ever step foot in the octagon. One of the best to never win a title as well. And that is it, guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to what I have to say, and let me know, who do you have winning this fight, Wonderboy or the Trailblazer himself? Do you think Wonderboy can still make a last minute push to become champ? Drop a comment and let me know in the comment section down below. Now, if you guys enjoy content that is related to combat sports, please drop a like on this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel down below. That would be greatly appreciated. And other than that, it's been Steven, signing out. Peace.